What really happened to Danny the Count Koker? The charismatic star of counting cars became a household name for his wild bandanas, love of classic rides, and rock and roll swagger. But as fast as his fame rose, rumors of lawsuits, scams, and even prison time began circling online. Fans were left wondering, was the legendary car builder hiding a darker story? Or was it all smoke and mirrors created by the internet? Today, we're diving deep into Danny's journey, his rise to fame, the controversies that nearly crushed him, and the shocking truth about where he is now. Before the cameras, before the Vegas spotlight, Danny Koker was just a kid growing up in a family where engines and guitars were as common as breakfast. His father, Danny Sr., worked with Ford Motor Company, which meant cars weren't just transportation, they were a way of life. The smell of oil, the sound of tools clicking, and late-night talks about horsepower shaped him early. But Danny Sr. wasn't only about cars, he was also the leader of a family band. That meant young Danny was just as comfortable behind a microphone as he was under a hood. This unique mix of grease and music built the foundation for the man fans would later know as the Count. He didn't see cars as just machines. To him, every vehicle had a soul, stories etched into its metal, waiting for someone patient enough to listen. And when it came to music, the stage gave him the same rush as a roaring engine. Those twin passions, cars and music, weren't just hobbies. They became his identity, his fuel, and eventually, his ticket to national fame. But at the time, Danny had no idea that this blend of horsepower and rock and roll would create one of reality TV's most unlikely stars, and his rise to television fame, that was just around the corner. Danny's road to fame didn't start with his own show, it began in the pawn shop. Long before Counting Cars aired, Danny was the go-to guy on Pawn Stars whenever Rick Harrison needed an expert on classic muscle cars or rare rides. With his wild look, deep knowledge, and infectious enthusiasm, Danny stole the spotlight every time he appeared. Fans couldn't get enough of the Count, and History Channel noticed. By 2012, Danny had his own spin-off, Counting Cars. Filmed in Las Vegas at his real-life garage, Count's Customs, the show followed Danny and his crew as they brought rusted-out wrecks back to life. From forgotten muscle cars to eccentric motorcycles, each build told a story. The mix of restoration drama, custom creativity, and Danny's larger-than-life personality turned the show into a runaway hit. Viewers loved watching him battle deadlines, wrestle with budgets, and unleash wild visions on forgotten classics. Within just a few seasons, Counting Cars became one of History Channel's most successful shows, running a decade and making Danny an executive producer by 2014. For many fans, he wasn't just fixing cars, he was reviving legends. But what viewers didn't see on camera was that reality TV is never entirely real, and soon, cracks in the polished exterior of Counting Cars would begin to show. On screen, Counting Cars made it look easy. Danny would spot a classic on the street, flash a wad of cash, and drive it straight back to the shop. But was that really how it worked? Not quite. Behind the scenes, those random buys were usually pre-arranged. Owners were contacted in advance, the deal rehearsed, and sometimes even lightly scripted to maximize drama. What looked like spontaneous treasure hunting was, in reality, carefully staged television. The same went for restorations. The show made it seem like a junkyard heap could be transformed into a gleaming masterpiece in a matter of weeks. But in truth, full builds often stretched for months, sometimes half a year or more. Clever editing trimmed those endless hours of sanding, welding, and painting into fast-paced, exciting storylines. The crew's banter, too, wasn't always as natural as it appeared. They weren't reading scripts, but the cameras pushed them to play exaggerated versions of themselves. Bigger laughs, bigger fights, bigger drama. For fans, that didn't matter. They tuned in for the spectacle, the personalities, and the final reveal. But for Danny, keeping the illusion alive wasn't always easy. And while TV magic was boosting his fame, real-world problems, lawsuits, money disputes, and employee scandals were starting to roll into the shop. And those legal battles would cause more trouble than any broken-down Mustang ever could. For every gleaming car rolling out of Count's Customs, there was a shadow creeping in behind the shop doors. Lawsuits. One of the earliest storms hit when Joseph Frontier, a former employee, was accused of embezzling money from the business. Headlines blazed with claims of betrayal, and Count's Customs even filed a lawsuit against the company that had referred him. But the case dragged on with little clarity, leaving the garage's reputation bruised. Then came another bombshell. A couple claimed they handed over $50,000 for a classic Mustang restoration that was never finished. They accused Danny's team of failing to deliver and refusing a refund. Suddenly, the feel-good aura of Counting Cars clashed with allegations of fraud and deception. For fans who thought Danny's shop was flawless, these headlines were jarring. Though Danny himself wasn't convicted of wrongdoing, the damage was done. Lawsuits, whispers of shady dealings, and angry clients began swirling online, fueling the rumor mill. For a man who built his brand on authenticity and passion, it was a nightmare. But as serious as these legal battles were, they would be nothing compared to what the internet had in store. Because once rumors take hold, they spread faster than wildfire, and soon fans across the globe were convinced Danny Koker was behind bars. Type Danny Koker's name into a search bar, and one of the first things you'll see, Danny Koker prison. For years, the internet has been flooded with stories claiming the Counting Cars star had been sentenced to a long prison term. Some articles even fabricated lurid details about what crime supposedly landed him there. Fans who hadn't kept up with the show believed the headlines, and the rumors spread like gasoline on pavement. Adding fuel to the fire were shady online scams. Danny's face began popping up in fake CBD oil advertisements, with bogus claims that he had endorsed or even owned the products. Some scams went further, making it look like Danny appeared on talk shows promoting them. None of it was true, but it convinced thousands of people. Hollywood legends like Clint Eastwood had fought similar battles against fraudulent companies using their image. Danny, however, didn't have Eastwood's legal team or Hollywood clout. For him, fighting back against fake news felt like trying to stop a tidal wave with a bucket. Through it all, Danny maintained his sense of humor, often laughing off claims that he was in jail one day, free the next. But the endless rumors show just how easily the internet can blur fact and fiction. So if he wasn't locked away, what was Danny really doing after Counting Cars came to an end? When Counting Cars wrapped in 2021 after 10 seasons, many assumed Danny would fade into TV history. Instead, he doubled down on what he loved most, cars. Count's Customs, his Las Vegas shop, never slowed down. Far from being an abandoned set, it became a bustling destination for fans around the world. Daily tours let visitors walk through the iconic garage, marvel at custom rides, and even step into Danny's private collection. For those who wanted the VIP experience, there were behind-the-scenes tours, meet and greets, and access to his rock bar. Danny understood that while TV fame might come and go, real passion is timeless. He kept restoring, customizing, and creating, just without the cameras following every move. In many ways, that return to basics was liberating. Without strict shooting schedules or production drama, he could focus entirely on the work itself. The shop became more than just a garage. It was part museum, part fan pilgrimage site, and part creative playground. For loyal followers, visiting Count's Customs was like stepping into the world of Counting Cars, except this time, it was real. And while the garage stayed alive with roaring engines, Danny's other passion, the one that came from his father's band, was about to take center stage again. Cars made him famous, but music always kept Danny grounded. Long before Counting Cars, he was fronting his band Count 77, belting out classic-inspired hard rock infused with the spirit of the 1970s. And after the camera stopped rolling, his band didn't slow down, it grew louder. Danny became a fixture in the Las Vegas rock scene, performing at festivals, biker rallies, and his own venue, Count's Vamped Rock Bar and Grill. His wife, Corey, played a huge role in keeping the machine running smoothly. While Danny delivered on stage with gritty vocals and commanding presence, Corey handled the logistics, branding, tour schedules, and promotion. Together, they built a brand that combined Danny's artistic fire with business savvy. To fans, catching a Count 77 show felt like stepping into Danny's world. Part garage, part rock concert, part Vegas spectacle. He wasn't just the guy from TV anymore. He was a performer in his own right, commanding audiences with the same energy he brought to restoring cars. It was proof that Danny was never a one-trick pony. Even if the shop doors closed tomorrow, the stage would always be waiting. And in fact, Danny's history as a performer went back further than most fans realized. Before the cars, before the bandanas, before History Channel fame. Long before Counting Cars, Danny had already been entertaining audiences. In the late 80s and early 90s, he hosted a late-night horror program called Saturday Fright at the Movies. Dressed as his character Count Cool Rider, he introduced old-school monster flicks with his trademark bandanas, exaggerated voice, and over-the-top personality. Even then, he was blending humor, performance, and style, traits that later defined his TV career. That early taste of the spotlight explains why Danny has never truly left it. Whether it's behind a mic, under a hood, or shaking hands with fans, he thrives on connection. He's built a legacy on passion, cars, music, performance, and refuses to slow down. His life today is a constant juggling act, running Count's Customs, performing with Count 77, and welcoming fans at Count's Vamped. To outsiders, it might look exhausting. To Danny, it's the only way to live. And as for those rumors of prison, scams, or downfall, they're just noise. The real Danny Koker is still building, still performing, still living larger than life in Las Vegas. His story proves that legends aren't built in studios or courtrooms. They're forged in the relentless pursuit of passion. Danny may not be locked in a cell, but he is locked into something stronger. A life fueled by creativity, music, and the roar of an engine.